Hi everyone, this is Natalie with Champion of Coins Tarot. I hope that you all are doing very well today. I wanted to come on to share with you the decks that I have been using in the previous month, so everything that I used in April of 2023. There are a few different categories. First are the decks that I've been using for the Deck and Walk. Next are the decks that I've been using in my Ancestral Tarot practice, and then the decks that I've been using for my regular daily tarot practice. And there are a mix of old favorites in here, along with some new decks that I picked up over the course of the month. So I'm excited to share my thoughts and reflections on those with all of you. So for the Deck and Walk, I primarily used the Babylonian Tarot and the Mary L Tarot for the Decans of Aries. I chose these because both of these decks feel very fiery to me, and because they really tap into the spiritual themes of the Wands suit in general for me. So Babylonian Tarot has just been incredibly beautiful, and the messages that I've been getting from the Babylonian Tarot in conjunction with the first three, or I guess the only three decans of Aries, my goodness, but the first three decans of the year have really been all about my spiritual practice. A lot of the messages from the decan spreads really affirmed my ancestral practice, which I found to be very beautiful and sometimes almost like spooky in terms of the way that that lined up with the themes that I would bring to my ancestors in that sacred space. And then the Mary L Tarot is much more contemplative, much more reflective. I initially started off with using the guidebook and going to that for answers, but I actually really hate the Mary L Tarot guidebook. Like, there are some parts that are very beautiful, but I feel like she doesn't go enough into the specific symbolism within the artwork. And when she does, oftentimes what she's talking about doesn't match up with what's actually on the card. So I don't know if we're going to see it here, but the biggest example I can think of is the Seven of Wands. She talks about it being a horse, and it's very clearly not a horse. Let me see. It's very clearly a wolf. So it's just things like that that have been very inconsistent, and I ditched the guidebook. I've just been using this intuitively, and that actually has been very, very powerful for me. Just being able to relate the energy that I'm feeling from these archetypes in the Mary L Tarot to my own personal life. Just been really, really amazing. And I do like the way that they pair together. I think that there are a lot of parallels in terms of the artwork. The Mary L Tarot definitely does draw from world traditions. And so you can see some Babylonian influence here. You can see some like Judeo-Christian symbolism. Like here we have the tree of knowledge and the tree of good and evil. So they've just been really lovely to work with together. That's been great. And then moving into the decans for Taurus, I have primarily been using the Hardy Tarot for that practice. Let me just, I had it flipped upside down. But yeah, the Hardy Tarot is one of my favorite Thoth decks of all time. This is a really well-rounded reader for me. It's one that I've used for spirit work in the past, and it also has kind of dipped in and out of my ancestral practice. But it holds just a very grounded, very earthy, very loving energy, and definitely helps me to connect to my center and to feel more grounded and more deeply embodied, which I need a lot of the time because I'm somebody who definitely lives in my head a lot of the time. And so this deck really helps me to connect with the beauty of the world around me. And that's been very helpful, you know, as we've been in the Five of Pentacles, the first decan of Taurus, and then the Six of Pentacles energy with the second decan of Taurus. So really love the Hardy Tarot. It is absolutely beautiful. And then for my ancestral practice, I've talked about this a lot recently. I did a video about kind of my thoughts and intentions of coming into ancestor work and really making that a very committed part of my practice. A lot of that was spurred by my relationship with the Etruscan Tarot. From the moment that I got this deck, I knew that the messages that were coming through were directly from my ancestors. They're directly from my deceased loved ones. And this has just been so absolutely transformative. It has been so beautiful to work with this deck, to be able to have a conversation, to be able to have a dialogue. And I kind of started out doing the exercises within the Ancestral Tarot book by Nancy Hendrickson, and I kind of give a review of that in my ancestor video. But now that I have gone through those exercises and kind of have a basis, I have like a shared foundation with the ancestors and set intentions for that work. Now we're just kind of really deeply connecting about the origin of some patterns of behavior, both good and also bad within my family line, and seeing how I can take steps to be able to be integrated, to be able to take the lessons from the past, to be able to build a very beautiful present and also a very beautiful future for myself. I am going to be doing a review of this deck sometime this month. A few of you have requested that, and usually I wouldn't do a review of a deck that I've only had for a short amount of time, but this deck is very different because this is one that I have spent the most time with out of all of the decks that I'm showing you right now. This is also one that is out of print and there's not a lot of information about it, although it is pretty affordable in comparison to other out-of-print decks. I got my copy for $30 on Facebook Marketplace. So this is one that I think is still accessible enough despite being out of print. And I want to be able to do the full flip through and also to share some of the spreads that come with the deck itself, because despite being a Lo Scarabeo Little White book, the spreads are very, very powerful. And actually, those spreads are ones that I have continued to utilize. So I'm happy to share more about my thoughts on the deck as a whole, and then to share some of those spreads that have been really impactful for my practice. And then I've also enjoyed using the Spiral Oracle to do kind of a one-card draw and to be able to connect with the ancestors that way, of kind of using this as the anchor for our communication, kind of letting them guide the conversation where it needs to go, and to be able to share whatever messages with me are very pertinent for that day. And this has been just a really beautiful energy. I love this Oracle deck already because I think that it is just a very powerful and really healing reader on its own if you were to read with it without tying it to any kind of spirit work. But it really has come alive in this very beautiful way, and I'm excited to continue working with this and to have this deck out and to continue to bring that to this sacred space. I pull this card all the time, really just in that stage of getting to know some of the ancestors that were predeceased, and just continuing to invite them in to spend time in meditation and feeling their presence and sending love. So yeah, really, really loving the Spiral Oracle. And then of course the other two Oracle decks for this practice that are specific to my paternal ancestral line are the Southern Gothic Oracle and the Southern Botanical Oracle. So my family is from the Appalachian Mountains in Southwest Virginia, and these images are very evocative of the culture and the landscape that I grew up in. I find that the ancestors communicate directly through the Southern Gothic Oracle. because again, this is very reflective of their physical lived experience. And I think there's a very good balance of light and shadow. We can talk about deeper things. There's definitely been a lot of healing work happening with this oracle deck specifically, but there are also absolutely beautiful messages of affirmation and support, and a lot of really good, like, actionable advice. Yeah, they're very chatty. So that's the Southern Gothic, and then the Southern Botanical Oracle. This is really more so for my own emotional processing. And this is kind of how I've been closing out my practice, to kind of come back down to earth, to feel more grounded, or to be able to, detox isn't the right word, but to be able to come back into myself, to be able to recenter, to work through sometimes difficult emotions that come up as a result of looking at these patterns and thinking about the impact that they've had on my life, and just really moving through a lot of those very intense feelings. I got both of these decks secondhand in the allotment of new decks, which was really great. And this one came with the Poison expansion pack. The Southern Gothic did not come with the expansion pack, so this deck is slightly bigger, and I actually have been pulling the Poison cards a lot, just because, again, it's like moving through a lot of that shadow, and making sure that whatever comes up in sacred space can stay there. And yeah, just being able to ground, to integrate, and to be able to step back into my regular mundane life. So yeah, really, really love these. These are so powerful. And again, I've been using them all of the time, using them daily. Some sessions have definitely been longer and more involved than others, and other times it's just like saying, "Hi, ancestors, I love you." And they're like, "Hi, Natalie, we love you." So that's been really, really beautiful. I really wasn't expecting this to become as big and as meaningful and profound for me as it has. So now we are moving into the regular decks that I've been working with. So the ones that I've been working with that have been staples in my collection over the last few years are the Serpentfire Tarot. This is by Devony Wolfe, who is the creator of the She-Wolf Tarot as well. And Serpentfire is a deck that I love aesthetically. It's very beautiful. It's like this photo collage artwork. It's very bright, very vibrant, very ethereal. But it can sometimes be hard for me to read. I also find that this guidebook is not necessarily as robust as the She-Wolf guidebook, and it's weird. It has like the court cards pulled out separately from the rest of the minor arcana, and it's just kind of difficult to work with. I do enjoy the affirmations for each card, and so I've really found that reading like one card with this, or reading a 3-card spread with this, has been the best way to be able to understand the intuitive message that's coming in, because any more than that, it gets really crazy. And this is one that's definitely more high-minded, spiritually minded, focusing on like what the big picture is and what kind of lessons that I'm moving through. And I have tried to combine this with a lot of different oracle decks in my collection. So one that comes to mind is here, I'll show the back to you. This is the Vessel Oracle. And this is by the same creator of the Iris Oracle, which I absolutely love. And I don't feel as strongly connected to this deck. I think that this art style maybe doesn't blend as well with a lot of the other tarots that I've tried with it, but because it's so direct, Like the keywords are so sharp and absolutely loving, but very much pointed. It's very much a straight shooter. It's very much a truth teller of a deck. It really does pair very well with this more expansive imagery. And yeah, just this combination that's happening right now. Six of Cups and release. Two of Swords and grieve. Yeah, I'm really, really liking this. This deck also has a lot of pinks in it, and so I think maybe that's why I'm really enjoying this combination together. So that's been really great. And then I've also been using the Isis Oracle by Alana Fairchild with it. And I have conflicting feelings about this deck in particular because I do really love the artwork. I've always been very intensely fascinated with ancient Egypt. I was definitely that kid who got National Geographic every single month, who would cut out and use the images of mummies and of archaeological excavations to decorate my room as a little kid. I have always had like such a deep love of mythology, and it really stemmed from learning about ancient Egypt at such a formative time. And I like that the messages from the Isis Oracle are generalized enough that it can be used to connect with the divine feminine force more broadly, which is good for me because I'm somebody who definitely toys a lot with using feminized Hebrew in my prayers. I'm somebody who is very interested in God as Shekhinah, or looking at Asherah, Inanna, like different variations of the divine feminine that influenced ancient Judaism and thus influenced the Abrahamic tradition that we have today, and kind of recovering that. So Isis Oracle, I don't know, like there are ways that it fits into my worldview, but then there are also ways that it does not. And I think it's mostly because I don't resonate with some of Alana Fairchild's beliefs. There's definitely a lot of almost like ancient alien kind of undertones to her work, where she talks about starseed, she talks about like light codes and activation, and I don't like that as much. I really enjoy learning about the history and being able to connect these religious symbols from ancient Egypt and thinking about how they might be powerful for me to meditate on and to reflect in my life. I'm just not, yeah, I don't know. I also think it's interesting that like the Star of David shows up in a lot of these cards. And, you know, we just celebrated Passover. We're in the process of counting the Omer, and that entire myth is about the exodus from slavery in Egypt. So I don't know, it's just interesting to me. So I like it, I'm not in love with it, but I do think that aesthetically it kind of pairs well with She-Wolf, and they're kind of on that same vibe when it comes to like spiritual, divine exploration. So those are those decks. And then I've also tried to bond more deeply with the Jungian Tarot by Robert Wayne. So this is a deck that I've had for a very long time. Robert Wayne also wrote 3 different guidebooks to accompany the deck, going over all of the symbolism, going over how to path work with tarot, as well as how to be able to use this particular deck for straight divination. I just find that this is very dense and very heady, and like I can really only work with one card at a time. And I really haven't path worked that much with this deck. I haven't meditated with it. So that's on me for not being intentional and not using the deck as it's intended to do. I will say that the 1-card draws have been very powerful and have been very meaningful, and tend to go with the overall emotional theme for a particular week, as opposed to being very specific to one period of time. Like, this is very much kind of a now-centered deck about like what archetype is present now, in the immediate past, in the immediate future, in the present moment. So it's been interesting. I definitely want to go back and to revisit this at some point. It just requires a lot more study and focus. Now we are on to the new decks. So I mentioned before, I got the Southern Botanical and the Southern Gothic Oracle in a secondhand lot, and it included 4 other decks. So I think it ended up being $90, which is less than what I would have paid if I'd gotten just the Southern Gothic and the Southern Botanical new. So I was very, very happy to find that deal, and I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the other decks that came with it, but I'm very glad that I have them, and I'm very glad that I've been able to experiment with them because they have added a lot of layer to my practice. So one of those is the Personal Power Oracle deck. This is a very small deck. It's independently published on Etsy and is still in print, and it has all of these affirmation cards. So we have I deserve, I am abundant. Some of them, like this card for Taurus, are connected to the zodiac, which is very interesting to me. We have Libra, I follow my heart. I am lovable. I am connected, and so on and so forth. And I actually do enjoy using this by itself in spreads. That's like really impactful, like within, without advice kind of thing. Also been enjoying pairing it with Serpentfire, been enjoying pairing it with the Spiral Oracle too. Not for ancestral work though, just outside of that. It just really is empowering and uplifting. And even though this isn't my typical style of deck, I am drawing a lot of value from it. I do find it to be very motivational. So that is the Personal Power deck. Next is what could quite possibly be one of my other favorite tarot decks of the entire year, and that is the Shadowland Tarot. And this came with a giant box and the guidebook as well. I absolutely love this. It's like this really nice matte cardstock. Unfortunately, because this was used, it does have a bend to it that I haven't quite been able to get out, but it shuffles very well, it riffles very well, and I just absolutely love these characters. Let's see if I can get it maybe to focus on the card a little bit more. Yeah, I love these guys so much. It is just an absolute treat to work with. This is intended to be a shadow work deck, and I definitely have used in that way, but it's also just a great all-around reader for me, for relationships, and also for career. I have done so many career-related readings with this and have been working through, honestly, you know what, that's been shadow work too, because I'm somebody who has workaholic tendencies. I can definitely put a lot of stock into how well I am performing. And when things are stressful at work, like I will push myself harder and harder and harder to try to overcompensate. Like I have this need to kind of fix everything, to the detriment of my personal life. So I've had a few moments this month where I really needed to step back and to evaluate my relationship with my job, to refocus on connecting with my family, connecting with my partner, connecting with people in my life, because jobs come and go. What really, really matter are the strength of your relationships. What really matters is that you are filling up your own cup, so that way you're not depleted. You have the energy to continue to do what you need to do in the world. And so this deck has been just absolutely beautiful for that. It's also just so funny I love these ghosts. I love these ghouls and goblins and cryptids so much. It feels modern while also remaining timeless, and I think that's because of just all of the monsters in here. This is also one of my favorite Six of Cups, and this is definitely like a little ancestor card for me. Like, this is very much what I've been up to recently. And the guidebook is great. I've really enjoyed reading about the descriptions of all of the cards and just getting a new take, a new perspective on the tarot system with this. So absolutely loving it. This is another one that I've been going to almost every single day since it came in, and very excited to continue working with it. And then the last two decks are the ones that I'm kind of on the fence about. So the first is Tarot of the Dead, which I believe is a Llewellyn deck. This one did not come with any box or any book. So this is inspired by Dia de los Muertos and the artist's Mexican heritage. It's very pastel. Like, I'm not sure if this is like watercolor or maybe even colored pencil. And all of the suits are pippish and they have been updated. So pens are the wands, coffins are cups, reels are pentacles, and then pistols are swords. And usually a pip deck does not deter me, but I think because the suits have been changed, it does make it a bit harder for me to be able to plug in and to understand what energy is coming through. I do really like the majors though. And this deck does feel very supportive. I like too that the courts are kind of like playing cards. So you could read with reversals if you wanted to, because you have one version of the figure on the top of the card and one version on the bottom of the card, and so on. Yeah, this is just another one that's going to take a little bit more time to decide on, but I do love this moon. This moon reminds me a lot of the Ancient Italian Tarot in terms of the very detailed line work there. And then last, but certainly not least, is the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron-Reid. This is my first ever Colette Baron-Reid deck, and it's weird. Before finding the allotment of decks, I had a dream that I was reading with this, even though I've never had it, never seen it before. I will say right off the bat, I do not like the artwork. I appreciate how many cards there are. I appreciate the keywords, but the artwork doesn't do it for me. What does do it for me is the guidebook, because in addition to the write-up of what the card represents, Colette also includes different ways that you could interpret it for relationship, for prosperity, or kind of work career is how I've really been interpreting that, and for spiritual connection and protection, or a more kind of like grounding, comforting message. And that has been really great. I love how multifaceted this is, despite being very simple. And I was surprised. I thought that the writing would be more along the lines of like an Alana Fairchild deck, but it's actually very practical advice. And I don't know, this makes me curious about other decks that she has done for sure. I'm not sure what I would even pair this deck with. I mean, I tried it out with the Shadowland Tarot. I tried it out with Serpentfire, and none of them were really resonant. I think this could be good with Thelema, because this definitely is that kind of digital collage style artwork to a certain extent, but I'm not sure. So this is definitely the rare case where the book is what is the main excitement for me, the main source of excitement for me. So that's a look at all of the decks that I worked with in the month of April. Thank you so much for letting me ramble on. It was very nice to be able to share this with all of you. As always, let me know if you have any of these decks and if you've had similar experiences with them or different experiences with them. I always love being able to compare that in the comments with you all. And I would also be very curious if there's anything that you want me to go more in depth on for a review, or to expand upon some of the thoughts and some of the practices that I've shared here, because I'm happy to do that. As always, I am sending you all much love as you walk along your own path. Bye.